A couple of weeks ago, we started our In the Trenches bracket where the fans decide who has the best defense in the NFL. And over time, it became less a debate between teams' defenses and more a competition between teams' fan bases to see who was more in tune in the offseason. It was never more evident than it was in our second semifinal matchup between the 49ers and the Seahawks, when Seahawks fans just showed up in droves and gave a record number of votes to get the Seahawks onto the championship against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now let's go into the trenches one last time, where senior editors Mike Wilkening and Eric Edholm hash out the argument.
Okay, Mike, the fans have spoken. We've got ourselves a fascinating championship battle. You've got the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I've got the Seattle Seahawks. Now, maybe not expected to be in this battle, and I'll let you go first to describe why the Steelers are the better defense.
Everybody knows that Pittsburgh is among the best defenses in the league and may be the best defense in the league. I think what people don't talk about with the Pittsburgh Steelers is that they have upside to improve this season. There's been a rush to sort of write off the Pittsburgh Steelers for years and years and years, but they've been great. Since 2007, they've been first in defense 3 times. You have to go back to 2006 to find a time where they were not the top 5 in yards allowed. Look, we are familiar with all the key parts of this defense, but when I look at Pittsburgh, first in yards allowed last year, only 15 turnovers forced. I think they're going to take a step forward there. And the present and future at linebacker, you've still got James Harrison playing at a high level at age 34. You've got Lamar Woodley in the prime of his career. Lawrence Timmons, to me, is a guy you look back 2 years ago, one of the best inside linebackers in football. You know, defensive line does a very good job along those lines too. But this is a sound group. It's a group that's going to get consistent pressure on the passer. And I think it's a group with upside to improve.
Now, that's a shocking take right there, because you're talking about the Seattle Seahawks, who many people didn't realize were a top 10 defense a year ago. And even though the Steelers had some impressive rankings, and they actually were better than them in yards per rush allowed, they were better than them in interceptions, twice as many fumbles forced, red zone, third down efficiency, all those things they were better at. I think we're looking at a team. Now, you talked about upside with the Steelers. Look, I'm going to say that the Seahawks have maybe twice as much with all their young players in the secondary. If you start breaking down the units, I think Seattle's got the better defensive line, and I think they have the better secondary. I don't know, Richard Sherman, Brandon Browner at corner, Earl Thomas, Chancellor at safety. Love that starting foursome. They've got some depth behind it. Heck, the Steelers don't even know who their left corner is. They've got injury questions at linebacker. Casey Hampton, is he going to play coming off the ACL? I really think that they're a young defense that's going to ascend to new heights. That secondary really excites me, and I think Gus Bradley is going to be mentioned as a head coaching candidate after this coming season.
Certainly. I really like the Seahawks upside as well. I think Pittsburgh is on another level, and I tend to think that the difference here is pass rush ability, the ability to create pressure. And Seattle can do it, but just not at the level of Pittsburgh. Seahawks 33 sacks last year. Chris Clemens, a third of them. You know, can Bruce Irvin help? Certainly, I think he can. When you look at what Woodley and Harrison did in 21 combined games, 18 sacks, the numbers say this is still a group that if they play a full season, I think they're capable of doing it. Even more pass rush pressure. You mentioned Gus Bradley. I think he's got a very bright future. Dick LeBeau, standard setter, certainly at his coordinator position. I just think that when you look at these two defenses, I think the Steelers are at a level that it's going to be tough to catch for this particular defense.
4-3 versus 3-4, experience versus youth. The schemes differ, but the depth of that defensive line, Red Bryant is a star, Jason Jones, Chris Clemens you mentioned. I think Irvin in the sub-package is going to end up playing about 60% of the snaps. Brandon Mabane, I mean, the depth there is very, very good. Those safeties, Thomas and Chancellor, hitting like crazy. They're like the Steelers secondary, only much younger. They're just teaming with upside. I think that's what their best asset is right now, is that Gus Bradley gets a full offseason to teach these guys, the young guys who contributed last year, everything they need to know about the scheme when they were just playing on instinct last year. So I really think the depth and the youth on that Seattle defense could make them this year's 49ers a top 5 breakout defense nobody saw coming.
I keep coming back to the upside. I think both groups have upside. And that's, you know, to me, when I look at Seattle, I think they're a group that deserves more respect. Pittsburgh, to me, has earned more respect, and I think the knocking of them off of their pedestal is going to be a lot more difficult than people say it's going to be.
Very fascinating to see what the voters have to say. It could come down to some small differences like the schedule. Seahawks are kind of front-loaded a little bit there, a little softer on the back end. They play in the week weaker division, two vastly different defenses. I can't wait to see what the voters say, but a fascinating battle nonetheless.
So congratulations to Seahawks fans for getting their team to the championship, but now the question is, can they be stopped? It's the Pittsburgh Steelers against the Seattle Seahawks in our Best Defense Championship. Steelers fans, you better show up and spread the word. Make sure to vote in the comments section of our YouTube channel. Send us your vote on Twitter or participate in the poll at facebook.com/ProFootballWeekly or at ProFootballWeekly.com.